Hi, everybody. My name is Chrissi Kelly, and I'm the founder of AbScent. Welcome back. It's 2022, and we're beginning our new webinar series. Tonight, I have with me three members of our AbScent community, and we're going to be talking about how you get on with food once you've started with parosmia and once you've lost your sense of smell. So before going on, I'd like to introduce Jeanette Foster. She is a member of the AbScent Network, as everybody else is, as well as our Facebook groups. And I'm also joined tonight by Richard Logan, as well as Mimi Ellis. So all three of them have got a really strong interest in food, and we'll be discussing that over the course of the evening. So welcome everybody, and welcome to our guests. Let's start by having each of you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your smell loss story. So Mimi, let's start with you.
Okay. As Chrissi said, I'm Mimi Ellis, and I lost my sense of smell in the spring of 2017 after a viral infection, a bad sinus infection. And I was lucky enough that even though Chrissi was just getting started and it wasn't super easy to find a lot of information, I dug around and eventually came across Chrissi and some of the studies from Thomas Hummel and started getting well pretty quickly.
Good. And Mimi, tell us a little bit about where you are right now with your smell loss, and you know, what's happened to you in the intervening period?
Well, you know, there's lots of stages to this and it's up and down, but 4.5 years in, and I think a lot of it was because quickly I found you, and I was able to find research and start smell training right away. It's been an up and down journey, but today, I want to say I've got maybe 25% of the sensitivity I had in terms of smell, but 25% of what I had before, being that I was just, you know, off the charts as far as how sensitive my sense of smell was. 25% is pretty livable. And I'd say the accuracy is almost 100%.
Excellent. Okay. Richard, let's move on and hear a little bit about your story, how you lost your sense of smell and where you are now with that.
Okay, yeah, so I lost my sense of, well, I started getting the distorted sense of smell in April of 2021, trying to remember what year we're in. So I had a bout of COVID over Christmas of 2020, fully recovered, and then a couple of months later, it just hit out of the blue, and just everything was awful. It has got a little better, but it's remained pretty steady now for, it's nearly 8 or 9 months now into it. It hasn't really changed. So and I found you guys, and it has helped, which is good that it started to trying different foods and taking it a bit more seriously.
Great. So glad to hear that you're feeling better and that you've found our community. And finally, Jeanette, let's hear from you. You've been a very active member on the network as well as on Facebook. And I know that you've also been a great spokesperson for smell disorders in general. We've seen you on the airwaves here in the UK. So if you could give us a little potted history of yourself before we begin tonight's webinar.
So I got COVID in March 2020, one of the first. And I lost my sense of smell and taste 3 days in. Got a burning smell, was walking around the house trying to find something that was burning. My daughter thought I was crazy, said go back to bed. Next day I got up and I realised it'd all gone. And so from the March to the September, I just had anosmia, and I was dealing with long COVID symptoms. So the anosmia was almost just, you know, part of it really. It didn't really bother me because the long COVID symptoms were so much harder to deal with. And then suddenly in the September 2020, I did that classic, I thought things were going off, so I was throwing things away, thinking it was odd. And then suddenly the complete distortion hit. and I had about 3 safe foods, which was raw fennel, raw carrots and prawns. And everything else was awful. I cried for a month while I was struggling with it. And it wasn't until I found you and your network and the forums and started watching the webinars and understanding a little bit about it, when emotions calmed down a little bit, because I realized that was part of the condition. And then I've spent, and I'm learning from you really how to manage it, which we can talk about as we go through. And here I am getting foods back, but I'm not there yet, but I'm in a much better place than I was a year ago.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'd like to start by talking about, we've all been through the experience of smell loss. We all know how just, really upsetting it is in the beginning. And then, you get to a period, much later on, after a couple of months, where you're sort of starting to learn how to live with it, not say accept it, but to live with it, and to, instead of banging your head against the wall every day when you know that you need to eat, that you start getting creative and adaptive to the way, your new way of eating. So I'd like to ask you, just jump in. What kinds of strategies do you think helped you? How did you feel about that emotionally?
Well, so certainly for me, educating myself on the condition, I'm one of those people that has to read everything, whatever I'm going through, whether it be, grief, divorce, children flying the nest, whatever it is. I'm an avid reader and I have to read and look and find what works for me. So I think educating about it, which is why the webinars helped. That was my first strategy. I don't know if anybody else has done anything like that.
If I talk about from my experience, I mean, mine's only 9 months, so I'm a baby compared to you guys. But it took me a long time to come to terms with it, to be frank. And I did stick my head in the sand and just said, no, it's fine. It's something. It will go away. It'll be fine. And it was only my wife pushing me that actually you should go and do something about it. That's it's made me sort of address it. But acceptance is hard, isn't it? Because it's 8 months into it, you don't want to accept that this is possibly how you're going to be forever, or it may not ever come back to where it was before. So for me, it is about trying to accept that, this is a new day, and this is I have to start again, and trying to be calm about it, because I see a lot of people saying about how they've cried, and I've been there. I think the first time I opened up on the group, I burst into tears. I'm a big fella. I don't cry very often. First time I did it, I cried to myself in a quiet corner, because it's so hard to accept that this is possibly how it's going to be. But it is the first step. It's just accepting that, I have to start again, and I'm going to have to start from the basics. And for me, it was, what kind of writing down the basics. What can I eat? Rice. And rice has been massive lifesaver for me. Rice and then broccoli, and that's all I ate for about 4 months. And
Really?
then adding small things to it. I lost about two stone in weight, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, but not in the context we're talking about. And it's and I've slowly started to add new things to it as I go along, trying to sort of listen to you guys on the network. There's a lot of advice on there, and trying new foods that. And just seeing if I can add them to my diet. But I'm basically working from scratch again. This is my list of safe foods, and I add bits and pieces to it as a trial.
Wow, that's a very powerful story. And what strikes me, Richard, with that story is that your wife was kind of with you on the journey. And Jeanette, you've mentioned your daughter. I know that I've seen your daughter kind of involved, in the cooking, or the making you a plate of something. I can't remember. I just remember thinking.
Yeah, I've got 2 daughters who have both been amazing, actually, because they out of everybody. I don't know why, but they seem to understand it. I don't know if it's because they know me so well, but they seem to be, they understood all my long COVID symptoms and all my food issues. They don't live at home anymore, but they come back. And my youngest lives quite a way away. And whenever she comes back, she looks at my safe foods and she creates something with my safe foods that she thinks she can make. And I'm absolutely convinced that your emotions play a big part in it. So because she's cooking for me, and she, you know, I'm thrilled that she's home. She's making something out of love. She believes me. She understands it.
Yeah.
She creates these things. And it seems that when she's done it, and that I'm surrounded by that love and warmth, that I get a breakthrough. And I can't explain it. And it doesn't mean that the next time it works or it doesn't, or when on my own it doesn't. But for some reason, I have noticed it, and she has too. And then my other daughter, when she comes home, she tends to be the fridge detective, and it's like, right, the milk's off, mum. This cheese stinks, you know. And she's doing, you know, what can we do in here? She was great through anosmia because she was living with me at the beginning of lockdown, so she was making me textured foods.
Right.
But yeah, that emotional connection, I'm convinced that that makes a difference.
Absolutely agree. Mimi, I see you shaking your head.
I'm nodding, and I'm watching everybody nod here, you know.
Yeah.
That's I just get the importance of you know, having your parosmia team, as I've heard Deka say, you know, that's so critical in recovery. And I'm fortunate in that I didn't struggle with a lot of parosmia. And when I did, it didn't affect my food that much. And by the time it happened, I had already met you and already was aware that that was a good sign that I was recovering. So I didn't have a lot of upset around that. But it seems that having that support team and really being seen and heard around how bad parosmia is, I think is just so central and critical to our mental health and just general well-being.
I had this one friend, I started to be able to eat coconut. So I don't know if anyone else could do that. Coconut rice, coconut biscuits, coconut chunks.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who delivered me a parcel anonymously and left it on my doorstep of coconut things that she'd found. I mean, that was so moving and so considerate and understanding. And like you say, that if they don't understand you and you're having to explain yourself, that's really difficult. And I did become quite reclusive at one point. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to eat in front of other people. I didn't want to smell things. I was managing my job and I could do that. But even then, I couldn't go into the staff room. People would bring food into the office and I just had to sit there and just deal with it, really. And it was really hard and I didn't want to go out. Luckily, there was a lockdown 3 in England, so I could hide.
Yeah.
I'd like to pick up on something that you were saying, Jeanette, about how important it is to be sitting at the table with somebody who understands you and who believes you. And I would also say that my happiest food experiences, and for those of you that don't know, I'm now into my I had my 3rd case of COVID in October, which completely eradicated my sense of smell again. That was horrible for me because I thought this time, you know, that was actually the 4th time altogether. 3 cases of COVID and then the severe loss in 2012. And I thought, well, that's going to be the end. And what could be left after that many cases of smell loss? Anyway, I am against the odds. I am recovering. So I hope that cheers up anybody that's listening and says there's no hope for me after 2 times or 3 times. But the happiest food experiences that I have now happen when I'm sitting at the table with people who really understand me. And I think that and understand the experience of smell loss. And that is extremely powerful, especially if they're the kind of people who will cook for you, because you have total trust in what they are doing for you. And that is, as you said, Jeanette, extremely powerful. Richard, you mentioned that it was your wife who encouraged you to seek help. What's been your experience of eating together with her?
Yeah, it has been difficult because it's trying. I mean, she just wants to help. She wants to help. She wants me to feel better, and she's coming to this understanding now that possibly this is, you know, us for a while. And she's very, very understanding. She's trying desperately to sort of start training recipes and things like that. But it's upsetting for her in a way, you know. We get this whole conversation where we're sitting there, she cooks us something wonderful. And I know it's wonderful because I've had it before. And I'm sitting there and she says, "Is it nice?" And I say, "It's okay." And I can see her light up and say like, "Oh, that's brilliant. We'll have that again." I'm like, "Oh, no, sorry. I'm being polite. It tastes horrible." But, you know, but I know it's lovely. So thank you for cooking that for me. She's very supportive about it.
Yeah.
But and like I say, she really helps me with trying the new things. I mean, I've started trying pretzel bread because pretzel seems to be fine, weirdly.
Right.
So this weekend she was trying pretzels for the very first time, trying to cook pretzels on. Don't get me wrong, the first couple of batches didn't work, but she's there and she's trying to do all these extra things and help me out, and it's nice. It's nice that we're together, because I'll be honest, as a man, it's been difficult with other men. It's not been taken very seriously, and it is you do feel very much alone when you're having conversations with people and they don't understand what you're going through, laughing it off and taking it perhaps, you know. But it is good having a partner, isn't it, who's there's someone who understands and is trying to help you. She's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And Mimi, what was your experience with your family and your friends?
It was actually funny because I am the cook in my home, so much so that we joke that if something ever happens to me, my husband will have to go live with my sisters. So it was on me. Fortunately, I did not have all the horrible distortions that would stop me from eating. And having the nutrition background, I knew, you know, I'm not going to heal if I don't get the nutrition. And I know that, okay, I don't get flavor right now, but I can still get sweet, salty, bitter, sour, and umami. And I can still appreciate, you know, texture and color and temperature and all those other things. So I just made sure that that was worked into everything that I made. And, you know, they were really understanding. My initial reaction was I was just really angry. And I'm not a very good patient when I have something going on. I don't tend to hide it. I want everybody to know how I'm suffering, and I want them all to suffer with me. So they had to endure me putting all of my cookbooks and all of my perfume and everybody else's cologne in a box and throwing them in the garage. And they just let me have my temper tantrum for a few days and then gently reminded me, you know, maybe not everybody has to suffer. And I think by then maybe I had found you, Chrissi, and I had a little bit of hope. And, you know, they've just always been super supportive. And they're curious. They would ask me a lot in those first 2 years, can you taste that? Can you smell this? What's it like? And now it's funny because I'll make something and very often one of the two of them will say, oh, well, you need a little bit of lemon juice on that, or you need some capers or olives over here, because they've just kind of gotten used to my strategies for making things interesting.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's funny, it's such a hard question when someone says, can you smell that? You know, does it taste good? You don't really know what to say. And also it's really difficult to judge when you have this low level of smell as I do right now. I don't really know if I can taste things anymore. Do you know, and a very good friend of mine who's a doctor who knows about these things, lost their sense of smell And when we were discussing this, what is this experience like? They said, I'm not even sure to describe what's going on. I mean, this is somebody that knows everything that there is to know about olfaction. So, we think that we're kind of, we don't really know how to describe it. I can assure you that people that really do know a lot about the sense of smell and about the way the brain works and all that also have difficulty, putting the right words to describe what's going on. So I don't think we should feel, it's easy to feel frustrated when you don't have, when you really can't tell people what's going on, but rest assured, all of you, that we're all in the same boat there. Mimi, you're a little bit different in that you haven't experienced parosmia, whereas the rest of us have. I want to talk to you and everybody else about this idea that when you lose your sense of smell, it's not that bad because you still have salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami, and you've got texture and flavor and temperature and all those things. Now, when someone first said that to me back in 2012, I thought, I don't want all those, forget that stuff. I want my sense of smell back. And what's really interesting is that now, we're getting on to 10 years after that loss. I am now so tuned into getting all of the true tastes on a plate at once. My color scheme for what I eat is really specific. And all those things, even though I sort of said to myself, I don't care about those things, they are now absolutely a part of what I appreciate about food. And I wonder if any of you have noticed that happening as well. And I'll just give you an analogy. It's like saying you've got the most beautiful sports car in the world, on your front drive, and someone says, yeah, look at this beautiful car, it's yours. Unfortunately, there's no engine. But look at it, it's blue and it's got these great seats, and it's a bit like that. You feel at first glance, you think there's no experience there. So
Right.
How would you respond to that, Jeanette?
So in terms of anosmia, when I just had the anosmia rather than parosmia, I think texture was really important for me. So my oldest daughter, who's vegan, had left me a biryani that she'd made, and it was full of texture and chili, and I mean, it was just the most amazing thing that I'd eaten. So I was really aware of every spoonful. That was about a month before parosmia set in. I've all my appreciation of food, I feel, comes from me making it happen. Does that make sense? Me trying to say, okay, what can I look at this? What can I do with this? So it's not about all the horrible stuff or what's missing. I don't think it's a natural thing. I don't think I'm going, look at that wonderful car without the engine at the moment. I think I'm having to go, okay, I've got a car without an engine. What is good about it? What can I find is good about it? Yeah. And I think it's a natural, like where you're saying you're at a point of appreciating it almost naturally. I'm not. I have to. I'm very much a positive person, so I'm lucky I can do that. I can look for the good, but I have to look for it. So the thing about friends making us food, my compliment to them at the moment from a parosmia point of view is, thank you. Yes, that wasn't disgusting. And all my wonderful friends go, yeah, that's a win. It wasn't disgusting. And they understand. So I'm not there, I don't think, in that natural place. I have other positives I can share, but yeah, I'm not there with that, I don't think.
Richard?
Yeah, I suppose the only thing I can sort of comment on is, I said to you, rice is a staple for me at the minute, and it sounds so ridiculous, but I knew I'd heard, we as Brits we don't cook rice properly, we just stick it in that pan, and I've learned so much. I've got 3 different types of rices, so I've got sweet, I've got savoury, and it's the textures, like you say, and it tastes so clean. And I like to have vegetables now with all my meals, and I cook them in different ways, so I get different textures out of them. With broccoli, I like a crunch to it. It's all this kind of stuff. You're absolutely right. I prepare my meals when I do prepare them myself, well, my wife obviously cooks a lot of them. She's brilliant, but I prepare them in different ways than I ever would have before, because I do appreciate that the texture is more of the it is more a factor than it ever was before. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah, the taste almost is secondary when it comes to these things, because they all taste pretty bland, the things that we're having. But yeah, that's the key thing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's about textures for me as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you are drawn to broccoli, and of course, for people who have listened to any of the webinars with Jane Parker on parosmia, you will know that we've been looking at certain aroma compounds that have a certain amount of sulfur in them. Of course, the cruciferous vegetables, that includes cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things like that, they also have sulfur in them, but they are not, they remain palatable to people with parosmia. So
those ones aren't for me at all. Broccoli and
they're
sprouts,
not palatable.
no, they're awful, and they're really favourite vegetables pre-COVID.
Interesting.
But
well, of course,
it is interesting. It is interesting. You see, don't you? You see the same sort of thing. So you see a lot on the group. A lot of people talking about garlic or onions, particularly. Sort of no across the board. But then there's things like, we're talking about broccoli here, which is unpalatable to you, Jeanette. But for me and for a lot of other people, it's probably the go-to vegetable. Do you know what I mean? And that's amazing. That's amazing to me. It's how many people in the world can have the same thing, and yet something like broccoli can almost be a staple for us, and almost acceptable for us, for the group in general.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to show just how varied parosmia can be. I think we all start from one place, with parosmia. It starts with just this horrible smell, but then over time that begins to kind of coalesce, and there are like little clusters of food that you might find are just really unpalatable for you, and then the rest kind of fill in that you can. So it's not the same for everyone, not by any means.
And it's learning your triggers, isn't it? Like mine's initially with the garlic and onion was what I realized were my triggers. So I wonder if in the beginning when I was trying foods that maybe they had garlic and onion in them and I didn't know. And I started from the webinars and being like the food detective, I started reading in my ingredients, and if they have garlic salt in them or onion salt in them, I know that I can't have them. I mean, right in the beginning, even things like rice and couscous and pasta were awful without anything. I can eat those now. I can eat all of those actually fine, but I couldn't back then. So I don't know what was in them at the beginning that I've now can accept them. But yeah, learning my triggers. So yeah, if something's got cabbage in it, onion, broccoli, I still can't go near them. But if I look in the ingredients and I know that they've got some carrot or fennel, I know that I can go to them, or fish, prawns, not all fish, but I mean I had a bowl of mussels, just plain steamed mussels tonight I can do vinegar on them, and I've been able to eat mussels all the way through. That's bizarre, isn't it? I shouldn't be able to eat mussels. You'd think that was odd, but fish has sort of been okay for me.
It's funny, and I wonder as well how much depends on the cooking method, whether it's a wet cooking method or dry, or how long things are cooked. And like you were saying, Jeanette, just other things where we may not realize that there's little bits of onion and garlic or something else that's triggering you in a preparation method that you had before. Whereas maybe I'm just throwing this out. I'm not suggesting that this is your case, but maybe it's not so much the broccoli, but the association with having had broccoli prepared in a way that had one of your foods.
Could be. I mean, I can stir fry some things now, and I haven't tried stir frying broccoli. I know I can't do it steamed or boiled, but maybe I could do it. I can't eat cooked cauliflower, but I can eat raw cauliflower. So I kind of discovered that, you know, so it is just keep finding, but sometimes I feel like now, however many months on, so it's, what is it? Can't remember how many months I am parosmic, 15 months or something. It's a lot easier now because I've got so many more things that I can go to. But in the beginning, and I had fatigue, really bad long COVID fatigue as well. And I live on my own, and I would make something and I would have to throw it away. And so it just knocks your emotions, and it's just so demoralizing. So then I had to work things out. I buy frozen foods that maybe I could just cook one of. So it might be a fish finger that I try every now and then, or one thing. So it might not have worked last week, but this week I can. But I have a food that I know I can definitely eat. So for a long time it was coconut rice, which you put in the microwave. So it was a really easy, not stressful meal that at least I could eat something. But I would try something with it, and I'd get a breakthrough now and then. So people in the early days, I think that was a really helpful thing to do, to take the stress off of it, because I just think that's stress. And it's a shame because you get the joy taken away of creating food. And, you know, I love cooking, but that's taken away from you as well.
I'd say as well, though, it's I think the problem is it's not always the healthiest foods that you can taste as well. That's the thing. I mean, I'm going to be honest here today. I couldn't find anything in the house that wasn't rice, and I ate rice. And we're in that point where we've got not a lot of shopping in the house until tomorrow, and so I sat and ate 3 bags of crisps. Yeah. Because I can taste them. You know, I can taste them, and they taste all right. And you know, it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for you to do that. But you've got such a limited food sort of list of foods you can have that sometimes you end up reaching for the crisps or something that's not good for you. You know, and I mentioned before that, you know, I was having this you know, burning sensation in the joints and knees and stuff, because I was just not eating healthily at all. I was eating rice and broccoli or crisps, and between it, it's not the greatest thing in the world. You know, I need to sort of open up and try new things. And that's the hardest part for me, at least, is doing that.
I think when my fatigue was really bad, and I spoke to a long COVID doctor that I managed to get to about, I don't know, a year after I'd first had COVID. And he said to me, he felt that, you know, my poor diet was affecting my fatigue, but in terms of fatigue and that I wasn't well enough was probably stopping the healing, my olfactory nerve. So it was, you know, that hand in hand thing was really difficult. With anosmia, I could make healthy choices because I was thinking about, I had lots of inflammation all over my body. So I'd researched foods that I could eat healthily, but I still had that sweet thing. I mean, I put on weight because that sweet gives you the satisfaction, whereas everything else doesn't give you any satisfaction. So that reaching for the crisps, I couldn't eat crisps for a long time, but I could eat carrot cake and banana cake. My friend made them a lot for me. Through anosmia and parosmia.
So that brings me on to the next subject. Fascinating conversation we've got going here. Let me bring out a new topic, which is, you know, how are we to manage recovery from COVID when we can't eat? This is something that is of great interest to me. I've been working with a group of doctors trying to sort of look at this question. And I would like to hear from all of you on, you know, obviously, Mimi, you didn't have COVID, but of course, you have experience in, let's say, the right kind of nutrition for COVID recovery. You know, I'd like to hear from all of you. I mean, you've mentioned it already, this concern you had, Richard, with, you know, you have this very limited diet, but this is a real problem for people. And it's probably going to get more severe as we hear about more and more people. So Mimi, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think it's an important area to study because, you know, we know about nutrition and wound healing, and we know about nutrition and so many other things. And like you've said many times, Chrissy, this is an injury, you know, so just like we're healing from a broken bone or a nerve injury, we've got to have the building blocks to put things back together. And, you know, it can be so hard when you just can't get everything you need through food. And
Yep.
I've seen everything from, you know, a teenager who should have been in his growth spurt losing 30 pounds to somebody developed fatty liver disease because her parosmia was so bad. She got by on, you know, chips and peanut butter and jelly for a year or so.
Right. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, so it has a huge impact.
Yeah. Have any of you had experience of using food replacement drinks?
Yeah, from your webinar, that was something that I picked up, I think last January, and I had to buy a few, and many of them were disgusting. And then we had a little shop down the road that was doing Herbal Life, and well, actually the dog knew them. He used to walk himself into this shop every day, and they knew his name and they'd give him a treat. But I popped in and they gave me samples in a little pot for me to try because they were expensive. They were something like £30 for the tub. And she gave me just a vanilla one. And actually vanilla products alongside coconut, I found that vanilla's okay for me. And with skimmed milk and frozen berries, I was able to do that. So from January to June last year, I was having 1 or 2 a day. And do you know what? Again, that took the stress out of my evening meal, just knowing that whatever those few ingredients I could do this time last year, I could mix it up. I can't even remember what I did, to be honest. I've got shopping lists somewhere because actually I found shopping really stressful, going into supermarkets. So a friend took over shopping for me and would do a delivery. So each week I would send her, you know, the list would have about 5 things on it. But it just meant that one meal that I had to worry about, and I could do the shakes twice a day. And I could always eat a banana. So I've always been able to go, even though it didn't taste wonderful, I've had a banana every day for the last 15 months because I felt that's something healthy. So I've tried to, so although I've had cake as well, and I put my hands up to the cake, I was trying to have my shakes, the nutritional shakes with fruit as well.
Yeah, yeah. Just a note to anybody who's thinking about using some of these powders to make shakes. They're not all created equal. So if you go into a health food shop, there will be a range of protein powders to make into drinks, which might be more for bodybuilders. And for people like us who are really struggling to eat, it's more a question of meal replacement. So that would be not just the protein, but it would be the other things that are necessary to sustain our bodies while we are recovering. So if you're interested in that, do please take a look at the label, or you might ask for advice in the health food shop. I've experimented with some of these drinks myself. I've been through periods of really terrible parosmia, and like you, Jeanette, I have prepared a meal and thrown it away lots of times, and it is demoralizing. You know, we're all raised not to waste food. You know, it's bad enough if you cook a meal for 2 and it's just one of you, but when you cook something and you can't even bear to put it into your mouth, that really does feel awful. So I can sympathize, and I do think that the shakes are a great backup plan. And like you, you know, for me, bananas are nature's perfect food. Bananas and milk, you know, that was one of the that was a combination, one of the earliest combinations that I could tolerate.
How are you? A breakthrough with the foods that we throw away. What I started doing, which I know it's simple, but I would freeze it. So if I'd made something and I didn't like it and it was freezable, then I'd freeze it. And last week I ate defrosted a curry that I couldn't eat last year that I'd made, and I could eat it. That was really exciting. It was literally just this week. So you get a little bit of a joy back, even though it's taken that long. So that's another strategy to use if you've made foods. If it is freezable, just freeze it for another day, and it's a joy when it comes back.
I just want to say, I'm not sure which post it was anyway, when I put something on the group, and I think you suggested to me about the meal replacements, and I have actually last week started using them, and I have to be honest, I think they're great. It's specifically a meal replacement. You do have to experiment with the flavors. I've only got one flavor I like at the minute, and banana gets a little bit boring every day. I'm just saying, but I have started with it, and I have to be honest, I do feel better for it. You know, I don't wake up feeling like I'm 75 anymore. You know, I do feel a lot better for it, and you see there's a massive benefit to it, definitely. Just taking those, even as a supplementary to you trying other things. You know.
Right. The powder that I tried is made by a company that is specifically, they're oriented towards sustainability. It's all kind of, you know, there are no, well, of course, the whole world is made of chemicals, so it's never correct to say there are no chemicals in anything. But this is the you know, the list, the contents will show you that it's, you know, made with rice and oatmeal and things that give the protein powder, or the product, really a broad range of nutrients, which are really provide you with everything that you need. So I wouldn't, for those of you who are thinking, yuck, I don't want to try that, I would say, like everything else with parosmia, you need to keep trying and find something that works for you. You can also take something that's got a sort of limited amount of flavor, maybe vanilla, or I didn't like the vanilla flavors, I liked unflavored, and add your own. You know, you might find that you really like, you know, the smell of the taste of clove or nutmeg or cinnamon or things like that, pumpkin spice. You know, you can add whatever you want and make it and tailor it to what you find is palatable. So do give that a try.
The thing is, it's easier said than done, because my mindset has always been not to use meal replacements to manage my weight or whatever. It's something I'm against. I'm about food being healthy for your mind and your body. So I had to make that leap, number one, to think, right, I'm going to have to use meal replacements now. I'm just going to have to shelve that for now because I have to have something. The other thing is that searching for the right one. The first day I thought, great, I'm going to get a meal replacement, and I bought some and it was all disgusting. You know, you're so exhausted from it. So I don't know, one, I don't know if we can, as a charity, you know, on the network, if we could create something that people could go to, ones that are healthy and ones that we've tried, so that people could have it. It'll take away that stress from having to just go anywhere. So if they had a list to go to, I think that would have helped me. The other thing is, I think Christina hopefully is watching us. Christina's one of our members on the network, and she's had parosmia for a long time. She makes a lot of smoothies, and the different things she puts in her smoothies, you know, she's really experimented. And she puts them on the network. So if you search for those, I think in Positive Posts or in our recipes, lots of healthy things that she puts in there, which you could add to the meal replacement, couldn't you?
Right.
Look at those ingredients. But it might be something we work on, Chrissi, finding healthy.
There's still plenty of work to be done.
Yeah.
I see that we've got a very lively discussion in the chat bar. Unlike most webinars, like when I come on with someone who's got new research or something like that, then we take questions from the audience that I can put to them. As the discussion today is a little bit different, we won't be taking too many questions, but do please chat amongst yourselves in the chat bar, and you know, we can save questions maybe for another day. Right, so how else can we help the audience kind of live with this problem of, you know, a different approach to eating?
Eating out's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that was a huge hurdle for me when England started to open up last year around the April-May time, and friends wanted to go out and I didn't want to go out because, like you say, wasting money. I think somebody had put it in the chat. I saw it popped up. You know, you go out for dinner and you can't eat it. It just makes you feel so awful. And it isn't just about the money. But what I tended to do in the end, one, it was summer. Two, I think I was getting a few little things back. I tried to change my mindset, and I would think about going out for dinner more about who I was with and the social aspect rather than the food. And I would look at menus beforehand and think, right, well, I know I can eat chips, and I know chips aren't great, but you can eat chips if you're out. And I could eat, I think I managed to get green beans or something back. So I went to a lovely reunion dinner and I sat and had two sides. I had some new potatoes and some green beans, but I didn't make it about the food. I made it about the company. But that's, again, that's having to change your mindset.
Richard?
Yeah, for me, I think what's helped me, and I don't know if it will help others, is you know, yes, once you get to that point where you've accepted it, you know what, this is it. I have to try and do something about this. It was, for me, it was like the only analogy I could think of is don't try a Lego set, just do the blocks individually. So you're looking at, you know, foods that are just plain and simple. I keep getting back to my rice, but, you know, rice, and then you add another thing, and then you add another thing. You keep trying those until you've got quite a few sets of base things, and then you can start working on building on top of them. But to stop me from snacking, I have to make sure I have these things ready and available in the house. So I do prepare quite a lot of food in advance, if that makes sense. So I'm cooking enough rice for 3 days, say, for instance, and if I feel peckish, I'll go and eat that, you know. And you just supplement it with some just spices and things like that you can mix it up a little bit and not become so bored with the same thing that you end up reaching for the crisps like I did today. You know, or you're not demoralized as well, because you've always got something to pick up. Because I think I said this as well, I was so hangry all the time. I was always hungry. And I got to a stage where I couldn't tell if I was hungry or I was feeling sick or what, but I was just moody all the time. And you have to keep putting food into your body, no matter what it is, you know, no matter what, but try and aim for healthy foods.
And Kevin just made a comment about that. He was saying small portions and one thing at a time.
Yeah.
No more meals. It's like snacking all the time. And Carol Shadford, who's another big contributor to our community, she had COVID, and she spoke very eloquently about her experience, and also said tiny little portions, so that when you sit down in front of food, you don't feel overwhelmed. You can, if you don't feel like you can eat it, you can do that with a good conscience. So it's like constantly being in a tapas bar. And I absolutely agree with Kevin and you, Richard, that you've got to be prepared and have things that you can maybe draw on a little bit at a time. But here's a question for you. Why is it that we can get bored with the foods that we know are our safe foods, and yet we never get bored of crisps?
Or cake.
Don't know why.
I don't know why. It's a quick fix, isn't it? It must be.
As well as small portions. Gone. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, I have a theory on why that may be, which is if we go back to survival, and crisps, as you call them on your side of the Atlantic, have a good source of calories, and crisps are what we call chips here. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So fat and salt. You know, we're biologically driven to have pleasure from things that provide us a concentrated source of calories.
Yeah, sure. Of course, from an evolutionary perspective, that makes total sense. I mean, just think about it, if you put a salt lick out in the woods, you're going to attract the animals because they're all looking for a little bit of salt too. So yeah, we are programmed to enjoy salt, and think, you know, salt was so precious. You know, for the Romans, that's the word where we get that's where we get the word salary from. It used to be you were paid in salt because it was so valuable.
That's another thing as well, that don't oversalt your food. Because I went through a phase of literally putting salt on everything just to sort of to mask the flavors. And yeah, that doesn't work very well either. You end up feeling awful afterwards as well.
Chili flakes are better. Chili flakes in everything.
Sesame oil. I found sesame oil, and that's perfect. I have that on everything.
You know what else is nice is something called crunchy chili flakes, and they come packed in oil.
Yes.
And I get them at the Asian grocery store, and they also have some sort of fermented beans in them. So you got a great big hit of umami, and it's not so strong that you can't eat it. So it's pleasantly hot, but not like knock your socks off hot. Really tasty. I love that. Put it on lots of things. Okay, so what else shall we talk about? Let me see if there's anything here in the feed that we need to talk about. We spoke about eating out and shakes. Oh, now Deka had a question about rice being a base food, which I think many people turn to rice. Mimi, is there anything that you can tell us about the nutritional aspect of rice? Are some rices better for us, or let's say have more protein, which Sina was asking about, than other kinds of rice?
In general, if you can get brown rice, obviously the brown rice is going to have more of the essential fatty acids, vitamin E, things like that we need. Protein content, I can't off the top of my head say what has more. Quinoa, I don't know if either of you, Richard or Jeanette, have tried quinoa, but that is a grain that's fairly mild and bland that does have a pretty good source of protein. And another thing I would look at trying, if you've never tried it, is the black rice. I think it's also called Chinese forbidden rice.
Right.
With that dark color, you're probably getting some anthocyanins, that blue pigment that's also prominent in things like blueberries, I believe is what gives that its color. So if you've never tried that, it's delicious and it actually looks really pretty on a plate.
I agree. I'm a big fan of, here we call it Thai black rice.
Mm-hmm.
And you just buy it in the aisle where you find rice, and it's really nice. I also like wild rice and wild rice mixtures. You know, you can, because wild rice is extremely expensive if you buy it kind of like neat. But if you get it mixed with something else, it's not so expensive, and that's got great texture. And I think that wild rice isn't even really rice. I think it's a grass seed. But nonetheless, I'm sure it's full of, you know, things that are good for you and has great texture.
Yes.
I think writing things down as well is a good tip, isn't it? Keeping a diary of what you eat, even if it's for reflecting back to, like when I can look, I don't have a diary as such, but because I have these shopping lists that I send my friend, I can reflect back on them and see where it's grown. Or if I've got fed up with the food, I've stopped having it, but it means I can go back and revisit that food because I haven't had it in a while. So I think diarising is quite good. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Richard?
I've actually started doing the same. I've started doing the very same thing this week, and but for me, it was about you know, foods obviously, but also, you know, seeing if I was hungry on those days, what I ate, you know, to sort of see, is this a filling meal for me? You know, so I'm trying to look at that as well, because I'm a big fella. I want to eat quite a lot. You know, I'm quite a physical guy, so it's I just want to make sure I'm always hungry, and I do put a little face on there as well, just to say if I'm grumpy or not. You know, was I a happy boy that day?
Yeah, but that's good because you could track back and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do think that, I mean, we're talking about keeping a diary here in a parosmia context, but I do think that in a general sense, for all these smell problems, keeping a diary is a good idea, because it's practically impossible to capture or to dredge up a smell, your experience of a smell memory on a certain day, 6 months ago, it just can't be done. It's hard enough to remember what you ate for breakfast yesterday, but to really be able to say, I feel differently about the taste of peaches today than I did a year ago, unless you've written that down and said, wow, I had a peach today, it was horrible, or wow, I had a peach today and it was completely disgusting. You probably won't remember that. And why is it good? Why is it beneficial to know that? I think that if you see any kind of change in your diary over time, it's proof that things are changing and that that it's not a static thing, that it may not be a linear trip to recovery, but it will show you that things are not staying the same.
Chrissy, someone just popped up with the comment saying how good it is to find out they're not alone.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things, isn't it, Richard? I know, like, just finding people that just get it.
It feels ridiculous and silly, doesn't it? But, I mean, for me, I said, I think it was nearly 6 or 7 months before I spoke to anyone about it, and opening up on the group, but finding out there's all these people in there, in the world who are sort of going through the same thing. It does help. It does help. You're not on your own. It's it's not nice, but there's other people, and we're all trying to help each other and sort of give us ideas. And actually, there's quite a lot of motivation from that as well. Just to carry on with it.
And somebody mentioning about the depression, I think knowing others are going through it, knowing that it's okay to be upset and angry about it, because it is a grief. Somebody else had put about the grief before. And also, I never explain it properly, Chrissy, but that thing that I keep talking about, the emotions linking with the olfactory bulb. And it's true, isn't it? It governs emotions as well.
Well,
there's a link somewhere.
Yeah, so we know that the place in the brain where the one of the first relay stations, if you like, that the smell messages go through, that are in the limbic system. And the limbic system is also the place where our emotions are governed. So one of the reasons why we have really emotional smell memories is, so if I ask you to recall something from your childhood, which is a really strong smell memory, so it might be being during the holidays with your grandparents, or the first day of school, and what the cafeteria smelled like, all of those memories will have been established because they are highly emotive. And you will make a smell memory by experiencing a strong emotion, whether it's good or bad. So I think that our smell, our ability to smell, and our interpretation of smell and our emotions are very closely linked. And naturally, when you can't smell anymore, that means something for the way you are feeling emotions. I know a lot of people say that since they lost their sense of smell, they feel very flat. They don't feel as though they're experiencing the full gamut of emotions, and that's really easy to understand. I'm sorry to say it, but we're actually at the end of the hour. I don't know where the time went. An hour was gone. So before I thank my guests, I would like to remind you that in 2 weeks, on February 8th, I will be here with Professor Jonas Olofsson of the University of Stockholm, and he's going to be talking about his new research, which was just published, on the 18-month outcomes after COVID-19 smell loss. So do join me for that. That will be very exciting. And on that evening, we will be taking questions. I'm sure you'll have many for Jonas. He is always very well received here on AbScent. I think his webinars are some of the most frequently watched. So to Mimi Ellis, Richard Logan, and Jeanette Foster, I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank all of you for being here. If you are not a member of the AbScent Network, please go to abscent.org and look for the little button at the top, which says how you can join. So I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much. And I'm now going to download this fascinating chat bar, because I don't usually save the chat bar, but I'm going to save it tonight because I really haven't had time to look at it. So anyway, thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.